Yeah, because, I mean, whether we like it or not, look, we have coaches in our country that they prefer certain type of players. And some of those players sometimes are not the most technical, you know.
Based on what?
And knowing, based on their, I mean, I would have to say, if they really would have won Jonathan, if they really thought that Jonathan was going to be part of a renovation of a different football, they would have called him, okay? Because they've known him for a long time. But the people who were in charge at that time, and I think they had obviously a coach, I think it was Bruce's assistant that took over that those teams. I don't think maybe he thought he was he was ready, or he was important, or he was the type of player going forward that they wanted. Because I still don't see any good excuse for him not to be called, because they were calling also kids who were the 98 group.
Right.
It was, and I mentioned Sargent because Sargent was a 17-year-old kid that had not played with a professional club yet. Saying he's not good, saying is that Jonathan was already playing a year and starting for a professional club that had gone to the finals. You know what I mean? But again, maybe whoever was in charge at that time said, I don't think Jonathan is what we want. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't agree with that, but you have to respect maybe that's what they thought. And it was a big mistake not to call him. That's what prompted him, saying, you know what, I'm done. They don't want me. They don't like me. And I don't blame him. To be honest with you, I don't blame him, because he did hold for 4 years because Mexico was after him.
No, I mean, I think I speak for myself and Steven and many American fans. When we saw that list for November friendlies, I was looking for Jonathan Gonzalez's name, and it wasn't there. Then we heard through the rumors that it was because Monterrey had a match at some point, and then that he was communicated that he'd get called up, and then we found out there was no communication. And you talked about accountability. We heard earlier on in the month when Jonathan decided to choose Mexico, U.S. Chief Scout Thomas Rongen mentioned that he had visited Jonathan 3 times, and we later found out that was false. What would you think of
it was.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's an embarrassment for us when you're telling lies to the people, and then everything comes to the light, which is not true. That just shows you what type of leadership we have right now there. Because I know for a fact that I've spoken to the dad, and he's told me, I feel so. I mean, it's so embarrassing. He told me what U.S. Soccer has said about my son, and the things I said that they did for him. Basically, they were not true. Why did they lie? And this is my point. It doesn't make any sense, because you have to be frank and sincere all the time. They should have said, look, I don't think Jonathan's our plans right now, the type of player that he is. We know he's a good player, but it doesn't fit in our system, or we don't think he's, ready right now. But to be able to come with those excuses and lie, I think it just shows you the lack of leadership that we have, which is honestly a shame, because you always got to be truth. And a player, when you speak to a player and you tell them the truth, they'll respect you, even though they might not like it. But they'll respect you. And the lie of the game, I guess, that they had visited him at his house, his family house, which is totally false. And if it was true, I mean, I think it was who was it? Thomas Rongen? They said that they had sent Thomas Rongen to his house?
Yeah, Thomas Rongen, yes.
All right. I don't know if Thomas Rongen speaks Spanish, okay? He's a Dutch guy. But I know his dad said, no, this was never true. So they look so bad on this situation that it's a shame. To be honest, it's a shame. And I mean, it's like if you're in a big company, something like that happens, you probably fire the people who are in charge because it's a serious thing. It's not. It puts our federation so low as far as how committed they are, or how serious they are, or how professional they are. Because sometimes even amateur teams don't do that. But again, because there's no accountability, everybody's passing the ball to somebody else, and I think that is not excusable.
Hugo, I want to ask you, because I'm a little confused. This player is clearly talented. He's done great things at age 18. You obviously saw him play when he was a lot younger. Armand saw him play not too long ago. Why did the federation cut this player out?
Because I would have to say that look, when I was with the national team program, I looked at our players, our young players, even the 98 group. I had the 98 group for camps, and if you look at the 98 group, some of the players that are playing in Europe are starting to succeed, and obviously Pulisic is a special one. But when I came in, I at least at that time I had the liberty to choose the type of players that I wanted to bring to the national team. I had gotten tired of looking at players that only ran, that only destroy, that only, were physical, that only played counterattack football. I was tired of that. And when I picked the staff that we had, and I told the federation this, and I said, look, we need to change this. Our players are better than what we see them play, I said, but we have to give them the confidence and teach them a lot of the things that they have not been taught. And obviously, in order to do that, you have to have the conviction of that type of football. Because if you don't have it, you are going to choose a different kind of a player. And when I look at our national team, I still go crazy to think that Jonathan wouldn't fit there, because for me, Jonathan, at his age, is probably the most tactical player I've seen in years, even with the ones who are playing now in the national team at the senior level. He's so tactical where he plays that it's amazing just to see him play that way. And for me to think that he didn't have a room in our national team, it's I feel sorry, for whoever didn't see that. But again, you also have type of players in this country, type of coaches in this country, that they like different types of players. And probably sometimes the technical part or the IQ is not important. And based on that is how national teams are being picked. I still think that the 98 group that we had going into the World Cup, those kids were, for me, talented. Now, why didn't they show the talent? Okay, why didn't we do a lot more better with that group? Well, it was the type of football that they play. It was the type of football that they told them they had to play. And I think a lot of that responsibility, it falls on the coach. I got in trouble for making a comment, when I was working there, because somebody asked me one day, what do you think about the 98 group they had playing in Florida? And I said, look, I don't think they play well, but they have time to get better. And obviously the coach got upset. He thought I was criticizing him, and in reality it wasn't. I was just saying that day I didn't think they played well. They could have played, but going forward, I said they can play better because I know they were talented, because I had them.
Right.
See what I'm saying? I trained them. I knew the type of football that they could play, but again, when somebody else got them, they play different. Now, at 17, the leadership is important. The way they tell you, some of the kids are going to have to do it, or else they don't play. But I know that group was talented, and I know that when I saw them play, they played totally different than the way we taught them how to play when we had them. And I think it all goes back also to the senior national team. Every coach picks players that he feels can fit into his style of play and system. And it's always going to be like that. But one thing I've learned is And Johan Cruyff said this, the talented player, the technical player, you always have to look, okay? It doesn't matter what. You always have to look. And then from there, you got to work with him to be able to fit him so that way he can produce as a group or as a team for the whole team. And I think we lack about those things also because we don't pay attention to that much, And I think that could probably be the reason why Jonathan was never given a chance to go to the senior national team or the other, national teams, the youth national teams.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Hugo. I mean, we do lack some certain teams within the national teams. And I just wanted to talk about another Jay Gonzalez real quickly, FC Dallas keeper Jesse Gonzalez, who actually made the reverse switch after playing for the Mexico's youth teams, played 4 matches in the U20 championships, and even rejected a January camp invite from Jurgen Klinsmann to attend the U23 Mexico team camp ahead of the Rio Olympics, which he didn't make the roster. And after a back and forth, he did end up playing for the United States. It's kind of funny because the situations are pretty similar, even though Jonathan is more seemingly it's hard to compare it to, but it looks like Jonathan is seemingly more talented, a little bit more talented than Jesse is in terms of the level he's playing at. What do you make of the battle between the United States and Mexico for these dual national players?
Well, you're always going to have that battle, but also you have to think about something. Some of these kids make these decisions with their parents. Some do it by heart. Some do it by how far they're going to get in their profession. Okay, I don't know Jesse too well, but I can tell you that in Mexico they have very good goalkeepers, and maybe he thought that once he got to the under-20s, he thought, well, I'm behind 3-4 goalkeepers, and usually goalkeepers in Mexico they last a long time.
Right.
You take a look at Ochoa now; he's been there this is going to be his 3rd World Cup, I think. So they last for a long time. So it's a more complex situation for Jesse, because if he would have stayed with Mexico, he probably would have had to wait 10 years before he probably reaching and being started in the national team for Mexico, because Mexico does have good goalkeepers. Now on the field is a little bit different because you can play any position. Goalkeeper, it was more difficult, and he probably thought, you know what, I don't see my future in the national team is going to be in a short time, and probably the U.S., maybe I have a better chance of reaching the national team sooner than I would be in Mexico. And maybe that's why, because I know he was I remember him, Mexico was very high on him through the youth systems. Okay. But once you get to the real national team, then it's difficult, because now you're talking about goalkeepers being there for 7-8 years, the experience, some playing in Europe, some being the best in their clubs. So it was more difficult for him, and it's probably an easier choice for him than it was, obviously with Jonathan. You're always going to have the battle. You're always going to have the battle. But at the end, this is what I think is going to be the important thing. If we want to retain our players, or if we want the opportunity to retain our players, let's put it that way, we're going to have to not only concentrate on the football side, we're going to have to do what Mexico did, which it was smart, right? If you're really interested in a player, do you think that you're going to, if this is the senior national team, do you think that you're going to send a scout to talk to the family? No. You're going to send the president probably. You're going to send the real technical director. You're going to send the head coach, because he's going to go to the senior national team to talk to him, right? And tell him, look, we feel you're important. We feel, we have a future with you going forward. And I'm here, to tell you that we want to have you. We like you. And this is the plan that we have for you. And all those things come into account. And then obviously that relationship with the family, which I think is important. Now, we didn't do that, okay? And I'll tell you, probably nobody wants to hear this, but it's the reality. We didn't do it because we didn't think he was important for us, period. We can go so many other ways to think and put excuses. He was not important for us. That's why we did not do that.
Going forward, who do you think has the upper hand when it comes to the dual nationals between USA and Mexico?
If we have the same federation, whoever comes in, Mexico.
But if we have
change, then we do.